Are you a man looking for an intensive program to help you overcome your sexually addictive behaviors? Gateway to Freedom is your answer. Gateway to Freedom is a 3-day intensive workshop for men seeking to overcome sexually addictive behaviors. Whether married, single, or divorced, Gateway to Freedom will help men regain hope for a new life of purity and real contentment. The workshop is conducted by experts in the field of sexual addiction recovery. Your experts have over 35 years of combined experience. Read testimonials of workshop alumni at gatewaymen.com. Get all the info and register online at gatewaymen.com or call 1-800-49-PURITY.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'm the founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop. I want to personally invite you to be part of our next workshop, coming up March 27th through the 29th in Pennsylvania. So call us today at 1-800-49-PURITY or visit gatewaymen.com.
Welcome to Pure Sex Radio, training men, educating women. Are you ready to get real and start living each day in purity? This dynamic program is designed to educate, encourage, and equip listeners with the tools necessary for living a life of sexual purity. Pure Sex Radio brings you the best in mobile talk radio. Listen to real-life struggles, learn how to overcome lust, pornography, and sex addiction, and get serious about purity. Your hosts for Pure Sex Radio are Jonathan Doherty and Stephen Cervantes. Jonathan is the director of Be Broken Ministries and founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop for Men. Stephen is the founder of the Hope Counseling Center. Visit us online at puresexradio.com. And now, please welcome Jonathan and Stephen on Pure Sex Radio.
Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this week's edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you here with us. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Stephen. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm blessed today. Thank you, Jonathan.
Excellent. Well, before we get started, I wanted to share with you, we've got workshops going on all throughout the year. This year, our Gateway to Freedom workshop is a 3-day workshop that's for men who really want to break free from some sexually addictive behaviors, whether that be pornography use or affairs or just any other kind of sexually addictive behavior. These workshops happen throughout the year in Texas and Oregon, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Georgia, various places. So we have one that's actually coming up in Pennsylvania in March. And if you'd like more information about the workshop in general or that one specifically, you can go to gatewaymen.com or call us toll-free at 1-800-49-PURITY. So that's gatewaymen.com or 1-800-49-PURITY. Well, Stephen, this week we're going to be looking at there's a chart that comes out of the book Wired for Intimacy, How Pornography Hijacks the Male Brain by William Struthers. And this chart is really kind of about healthy sexuality versus unhealthy sexuality, or what we're going to be calling kind of porn thinking versus healthy sexual thinking. And so why don't you just maybe share with our listeners what we're going to be doing with this list?
I say we launch into it. I'm going to represent porn thinking, and you're going to represent healthy thinking.
Okay.
So let's go. You know why porn is good? Because it's a way to take care of yourself. You know, porn is good, and you got to take care of yourself, and it's just a nice way to take care of yourself.
Well, you know, that's kind of the lie that I think is put out there. But really, the reality is that porn is a way to kind of use. So what you think is taking care of yourself is kind of an abusive way to even look at yourself. You know, let alone how you look at others. But it's sort of a way to look at yourself as just nothing more than maybe a sexual being, and that's what your whole focus should be. And so it's kind of diminishing you into a one-dimensional person who's not able to see, in some ways, you might not even be able to see your worth beyond just that, your sexual prowess. And so it's kind of a way to abuse and use.
Well, but also, there's a lot of sharing that goes on with porn, right? It's passed around, and so isn't sharing a good thing? And since it's a shared activity, I'm thinking it's good.
That you share your porn with somebody. Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's a sharing. It's a godly thing, sharing.
So, but if porn is really more about kind of self-abuse and certainly abuse of others or misuse of others, then you're saying essentially you see that as a good thing to share. Let's
sharing.
share.
I've always heard in church, sharing is good.
Yeah, so share your self-abuse, share your using of others and misuse of others.
Oh.
I don't think that seems like a very good thing.
I think it's sort of a recognized way to honor men and their sexuality when you use porn. It's sort of a man is a man and men got to do, and so there's somehow recognition and honor, I think, in using porn.
But I totally disagree. Obviously, we're kind of going back and forth here, right? Because I think that's saying, what are you honoring about a man? You're honoring his ability to dominate, to control, to use, to misuse, to violate. And so I don't see that as an honoring thing. I see that as something that's very dishonoring, not only to the females and whoever else is in the pornography, but dishonoring to your own character, because it's saying, you know what, I'm a man who abuses, who misuses, who controls, manipulates, violates, dishonors. So, I don't see that as an honoring sort of thing.
Okay, well, wait a minute. You're missing my point. Then let me make this point. I think that porn is real and authentic, and I think it's life. And I just don't think you want to be honest and real about facing this.
Think about what pornography most often causes men to do. It causes them to lie, cheat, hide. And even if they're not doing that, guess what happens even within the pornography? There's even deception within the pornography. There's nothing real about these sexual relationships. There's nothing real about it. Even the pornography itself is not showing you the full picture of what's going on behind the scenes in terms of the sickness, the disease, the abuse, all those kind of things. So pornography is filled with deceitfulness, both from the pornographers as well as those who are using it. I mean, how many guys, go to their wives with a complete sense of clear conscience and say, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking at pornography, and these are the kinds of pornography there's deceit all over the place in pornography.
Okay. Well, maybe you're not understanding this because men are told to be emotional, right? And I think porn helps a man be emotional because it stirs up feelings, right? That's an emotion. And you can have fun. That's an emotion. And you feel good. That's an emotion. And it's pleasure. That's an emotion. And you can even have delight. And so it helps the man be more emotional.
Mm-hmm. It helps him be emotional in a sense that is completely separate from any sort of emotional bonding with his significant relationships. So yes, there's a lot of emotion that can come out as a result of using pornography. But emotion in and of itself does not equal emotional bonding. Actually, that's not true. But guess what you're bonding to? You're bonding to an image. You're bonding to this static page, this video. You're bonding to something that is not actually real because you're not connecting to these actresses or actors in a real way. And so what ends up happening is you're creating an emotional bond to a fantasy. And so what that means is that you're actually moving away from any sort of real emotional connection with your spouse, with your children, with anybody of a real sense in your life.
But maybe porn could be used for practicing connecting with others. there is an image of somebody else there, and if you're not too good at really connecting with others, maybe you could use porn for training material to practice connecting.
But here's the thing. You're still trying to mix apples with oranges. So you're going to practice connecting to a fantasy in order to better learn how to connect with people in reality. Those are two opposite worlds. So the more you keep connecting emotionally and practicing connecting with pornography, you're actually distancing yourself further and further from being able to connect with anyone in reality, in your real life, with real people that you actually know.
Okay, well, but what about this? We're told to really get excited about something, to have passion and enthusiasm, and to pour ourselves and to get saturated and involved in something. Well, why can't that be porn?
Well, because again, what you are getting saturated in and what you are pouring yourself into is something, again, that's not real. So the more you pour yourself into it, the more you saturate your life with that, is that it's going to actually drive you away from a healthy perspective on relationships. The other thing, too, that I think happens there is that the way that pornography is paced in order for you to think about relationships is immediate, now, fast.
Perfect, good, pleasurable, yeah.
So what ends up happening is in developing real relationships with real intimacy,
slow and sacrifice,
it's much slower, it's much more difficult. And
patience, grace.
Yeah, so the only thing you're actually learning by quote-unquote practicing with pornography is how to be more compulsive.
Ouch.
So how to be more impulsive. And real intimacy is not about compulsion or impulsivity.
And immediacy, right?
Right. It's about something long-term and much slower.
Okay, you're sort of making sense over there, okay. But one of the comments made often is that men don't talk. But guys that exchange porn, they talk a lot about different issues in magazines, and they communicate a lot in email. They do a lot of sharing, connecting, and talking, the guys that share porn. They're doing talking stuff. So I don't know why he's complaining about he's not talking. They're talking.
Yeah, here's the thing. That is not what's actually going on if you think that's communication. Guys sending each other links to pornography and saying, one-word lines like, wow, cool, awesome, check this out. That's not communication. That's just propaganda is what it is. It's just saying here. And here's the thing, Stephen. Sometimes what happens then is when a guy actually attempts to communicate to his wife, when all he's known is kind of this world of porn, he is very limited in his vocabulary, and because everything is very, one word and just, and there's a lot of frustration a lot of times in communication, because communication is essential for healthy relationships, but it's totally optional when it comes to pornography and fantasy and everything else. And so he's going from a world that's saying, communication isn't necessary for me to be doing these things in pornography and whatever else. And then he tries to turn to his spouse and have a relationship, and she's making him realize communication is essential, and he keeps trying to think it's optional.
Hey, I've got this other thought that might help convince you. It's about boundaries, because I have boundaries of things I won't look at. I'm not going to do what those other guys that are really, really bad do. So I set boundaries. So it's like not more than an hour. I'm not going to be abusive. I'm going to set a good boundaries. Only look for an hour, and I'm not going to look at the really bad stuff. So you understand. I'm glad when they talk about boundaries, because I have boundaries even in porn use.
Yeah, well, your boundaries are, first of all, they're superficial and they're artificial. Because if you're saying you have boundaries, essentially you're saying, I'm only going to look for an hour, I'm not going to look at that particular stuff. If we can establish, though, that all of pornography is poison, then you're essentially saying my boundary is I'm only going to take a teaspoon of cyanide instead of a gallon. And thinking that that's still not going to have any massive negative effects on your life. Listen, a teaspoon of poison is just as bad as starting to guzzle it down, out of a gallon jug. And so you're starting from the premise of thinking that there's something that could be good in pornography when the whole thing is saturated as a poisonous thing.
Oh, okay. What about this point? Sometimes people say you're not all in or you're not all there. Where are you? But when a guy looks at porn, he's all there. He's been planning all day to be there. He's been setting it up all day to be there. He's been anticipating all day being there. And then he gets there. He's all there. He's all excited. He's all involved. He's all ready to go. He's set and primed and ready. And so I don't know why people say, I think it's good to be all there.
Well, again, I think you might be a little bit confused about what all there is. You're thinking, usually what all there means to a guy who's going to look at pornography is all of my sexuality is there. But not necessarily your whole being in the sense of your spirit and your emotion. And so what you're saying is, I'm all there to focus on sex. So in a sense, you're saying I'm all there as a one-dimensional man with a narrow focus on nothing else in my life. Because we know that a guy that begins to actually look at pornography, he gets tunnel vision. Mm. So when you're looking at pornography, are you thinking about taking your wife out to dinner? Are you thinking about how you're serving your children and training them up? Are you thinking about all the projects that you need to do at work? Are you thinking about mowing the lawn? Are you thinking about the things that are part of your fuller life, the bills that need to be paid, the acts of service that you can do for your neighbor? No, you are becoming one-dimensionally focused on genitals and body parts, and so if you think that that's what being all there means, then you may need to broaden your understanding.
Maybe I misunderstand what people are saying sometimes. I can claim to be slow once in a while, but what about there's times now when people say you don't take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself and set up boundaries and make it about you a little bit. It's okay if it's about you a little bit. So what if you use porn to make it about me? Because I'm just I'm doing my own personal time. I'm doing individual work. It's okay, people say, to take care of yourself. You should take care of yourself.
And see, that's one of the ways that the enemy deceives us. He always puts a little bit of truth in every lie, because, see, what you're buying into there is that me time means that I can cross any moral boundary, regardless of how it's going to affect me or others, and therefore do whatever I want. Whereas what I think is healthy me time is saying, how can I rest in a way that I can come out of this healthier, better prepared to serve others, rather than saying, how can I escape from all of my relationships? How can I escape from all of my moral boundaries in order to go do something that is essentially going to hurt myself and others that I live with and that I do life with?
Okay, that didn't go so good. But how about this one? This one here. It's natural, Jonathan. It's natural. God came up with it. He was the one that made us naked. So if a little naked is okay for God, how come a lot of naked isn't better, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is natural for us to have sexual urges, to have sexual desires. But here's the thing. Because God does not expect us to live merely for the natural or in the natural exclusively. So in other words, when he said, the two shall become one flesh in this marriage union, what he said is there's a context in which naked and sexual is blessed and actually celebrated by the creator of sex. But for us to take that outside of those boundaries and say, I'm going to do something outside of that, he says, no. You're not it's not good for you to just follow your natural to its whatever conclusion you want to make. You could use that in any sense, Stephen. Let's say you said, you know what? Hey, God made us with an appetite. God made us with a stomach, and so therefore food. I mean, hey, that's good, right? So if you were to take that to its fullest and grossest conclusion, you could gorge yourself literally to death.
Gosh.
And so the idea is there are natural things that, yes, they're good, but there are still boundaries around them by their creator.
And I guess you would say that if I said man and woman, man looking for woman, man like woman, naked woman, that wouldn't convince you that it's okay to do porn?
What do you mean? I mean,
it's natural, it's good, it's God, it's the garden, naked, man and woman. It's so natural. You don't get it?
It is natural, but we aren't in the garden anymore. There's a snake that came in there and messed everything up. And so we're not in the garden anymore. There are boundaries. There are limits. And even if something is natural, it doesn't mean that taking it to its fullest expression is always good. Because
you said that.
There are contexts,
Okay. How about this? Some people say...
And actually, I want to make another point on that.
Okay.
And besides the point, you are making the false assumption that what happens in pornography is about this garden, man, woman, selfless love and connection and intimacy.
Yes, that's right.
And guess what? None of that is expressed in pornography. Pornography is take, dominate, abuse, get. There's nothing about giving and sacrifice and selfless in that. And so you're also trying to you're mixing oil and water when you're trying to say, let's mix the garden with pornography. Those are two different worlds as well.
Okay. Let's try a whole other angle. This is not working too good here. I'm not convincing you very well. But I was told that it's good to form good habits, and that habits are a good thing, and routines make life easy, and life works best if you have habits. And so if I have a little secret habit, what's wrong with my habit? I'm practicing over and over again repetitive skills that make me happy. It's a habit.
Well, habit in and of itself doesn't necessarily equal a good thing. You could have the habit of cutting yourself every single day. Is that necessarily a good thing? So the habit of ingesting the poisonous lies of pornography does not enhance your marriage relationship, does not enhance your ability to be a father, does not enhance your ability to be a present, competent worker. And so just because something is a habit doesn't mean that it is actually a good thing, because it depends on what the habit is. And also, when you're saying, I'm forming this habit of doing something that makes me happy, I would ask you to actually evaluate your happiness, because I don't meet any guys who have a significant porn habit that look me in the eye and say, I'm fully satisfied and happy. Because here's the thing about pornography, is it actually creates more of an appetite for selfishness and lust. It does not satisfy that appetite for selfishness and lust. Because the more you look at pornography, under the guise that it's going to make you happy, because if everything's about you, then you're happy, what you actually find out down the end of that road is that when life is all about you, you're miserable. Self-centeredness has never produced a happy soul.
Okay. All right, let's try this. Nurturance. People say, you should be nurtured. Nurture one another. Nurture is a good thing. And so what if I practice nurturing me? What's wrong with nurturance? Because I need to be nurtured. At least that's what I'm told. I need to be nurtured.
Well, if you think nurture is, okay, let's take this image of pornography then. Okay, if pornography is going to be your nurturer, that's where you're finding nurture, then essentially you're saying, I want to crawl up into the lap of someone who is going to lie to me, deceive me, who's going to seek to hurt me, who is going to tell me that it's okay to hurt others. And if that's where you think you're going to get nurture, then we got a really skewed perspective on what kind of nurture you're looking for. Now, if you want to crawl into the lap of your Creator, who says, you know what, I've made you for innocence, I've made you for purity, I've made you for good things, I've made you to actually serve and help others, I've made you to be part of a community of people who are connected to one another, loving one another, serving each other, then you might get a better picture of what nurture is really all about.
I don't like this. Okay, what if I learned early when I was young that it is an expression of love to look at a woman and to get excited, and it's an expression of love to want to be with a woman, and I just practice over and over again looking at women and thinking they're wonderful and wanting to be with them. What if it's just the way I express love?
Well, then again, you've got a very one-dimensional idea of what love is. Because essentially, if you've gone to pornography and you believe that it's about an expression of love, then your idea of love is one that will dominate, manipulate, that will take. And also your idea of I think your idea of love has probably become very mechanical, meaning that love equals intercourse. And so the other thing too is then you probably are going to feel like the only way that you can feel love is if you are dominating a woman and having intercourse.
Ouch.
And that's a very that's a twisted way of seeing love. When love really should be about selflessness and serving and sacrifice, not taking.
Okay, look, I'm just a man. Okay, let's just put it on the table. Let's bottom line this. Okay, I'm a sexual being. I'm a man. Okay, and I'm humanity, and it's part of the process. Okay, everybody's got to do a little bit of this. Can't it just be my humanness? Can you just cut me some slack here and let it be my manly humanness that's real?
Well, I'd love to say that's fine if it were that you were actually humanizing people in pornography. But the fact of the matter is, pornography is about objectifying people. It's about making them a product, not humanizing. Guys don't look at porn because they are interested in personalities and histories and stories and reality. They look at porn because they want to pull that product off the shelf, use it for a moment, and then discard it when they're done. And there's nothing human about that. That's animal. That's if I dare say, that's evil.
Ouch. So you wouldn't probably buy this idea either. It's sort of honoring God to enjoy sexuality, the thing he made. It's not in some way sort of...
Not through pornography. It is honoring God to use our sexuality in the context in which he made it, which is in marriage, and that's very honoring
okay, what
God.
about beauty? God's all about beauty. What about celebrating beauty? What if porn could be like celebrating beauty, which God is about beauty?
Oh, that'd be great if it actually celebrated beauty. It's not celebrating beauty. It's celebrating lust. It's celebrating power. It's celebrating the misuse of power. And so there's nothing beautiful about porn. Well, we're going to have to actually wrap up there. I'm sorry, but hopefully this has shed some light for our listeners.
But wait.
I'm sorry. We got to. We're out of time. And so hopefully this has started to show you maybe how to form an argument, not in a combative way, but in a way that just starts to shed light on what's the truth about pornography and how can you maybe defend the healthy view of sexuality. We're glad you've been with us.
And just give them our podcast, will you? If you don't want to do it, tell them where to go to hear our podcast. And so if they say it's great, say, hey, just listen to this.
We're glad you've been with us, and we'll see you back here again next week on the Pure Sex Radio broadcast.
Pure Sex Radio is paid for by Be Broken Ministries. Visit us online at puresexradio.com.